Hey everyone, I am here for another live session. I'm really excited because today is not a one-page funding page, which I love those, but today we're actually going to do the Impact Roadmap Framework, which I'm excited for because if you're a nonprofit and you are in this season, you should be thinking about your strategic plan for 2024, and my Impact Roadmap Framework is the way to get to like, what exactly are we doing? What impact are we trying to make? What key activities are we going to do to get there? And it's a much more simplified, practical document than those strategic plans that we see that we all create, but then maybe we don't even use or look at again for the next year. So I have Kathryn Westland here from Friendship Centers, and we are going to work on getting her mission and her vehicles for change and her impact roadmap set up. We're not going to have time for a full impact roadmap session, but this should be helpful for you on how you want to do your impact roadmap and set you up for how you would frame this. So if you want to check out more about the impact roadmap, you can go to forpurposelive.com/impact, and I will bring Kathryn in. Hey, Kathryn.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I am going to share here. Screen, impact roadmap, just because I think that this may help. Now I need to get back. Here we are. So this working doc is just a template that I use when we're doing our impact roadmap. We do come up with this like really beautiful professional document, but while you're working and wordsmithing, especially with your board, it's so good to do it in like a Google Doc where everybody can comment and get everything down. And then you just copy and paste into the Canva document. When you do my impact roadmap course, it comes with the Canva template, which everybody likes, an external document that they can hand out. I actually think that this is not the one that I want to be sharing. Hold on one sec. Maybe this one. Are we in? Share this stuff. Okay, cool. So let's start with, just tell us a tiny bit about Friendship Centers, and then we'll start with your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So Friendship Center is an adult day program. We're located in Santa Barbara, California, a beautiful spot, actually in an area called Montecito. And an adult day program is, the model that we are is a social model. So we are a secure space for older adults or dependent adults. Primarily, the members that come to our program are living with a form of dementia. So Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia. We also have adults that are living with traumatic brain injuries or intellectual developmental disabilities. And then we also have, particularly post-pandemic, a lot of older adults that just really wanted that socialization, that have recognized in themselves or maybe in their spouse or in their parent that they've been inside, not doing much for quite a while, like a lot of us, but as we age, that is really important to engage your senses. So we're a day program. No one lives here, Monday through Friday, regular business hours. We have cognitively, physically, emotionally, and socially engaging activities. And it's really fun. It's a fun place.
Beautiful. I love it. So needed, right?
Yes.
I bet you provide a lot of peace of mind for families as well.
Absolutely. That's what we say. We provide peace of mind for the families, knowing that their loved one is doing something, important through the day. So peace of mind for the families and purpose for the members that come here. They're coming to a group of, 30 friends that are so excited to see them every day. And we build our program based around what our members that are here want to do. So we have people who love cars. We have a car program. If we have people that are, retired healthcare workers, we'll have a conversation group around that. So it's a lovely place.
Nice. It's tailored.
Yes.
Okay. So what is your current mission?
So our current mission is to provide life enriching and stimulating activities for older independent adults.
Okay. So I'm just going to like break it down for you and for anybody watching. So when I think of a mission, I think of a desired result and nothing I ever say is like, oh, this is good or this is bad. It just like is what it is. It's how I come to it. So what's the desired result for your population? So what I love is older independent adults is like so specific. I get it. It's not like it totally helps me understand that this isn't, overnight care, or they are independent.
I'm sorry. It's actually older and dependent.
Oh, and dependent.
Yeah. So the adults that come to our program are dependent. They need supervision. So we are a secured community here.
Okay.
It's a dementia-friendly, age-friendly design. So
perfect. So
we
even
foster independence, but they are dependent adults.
Okay, perfect. So makes more sense, and words matter, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me what providing life enriching or stimulating activities gets these adults?
Yeah. So what we're doing, we can't improve, particularly with most forms of dementia. You can't really stop the disease progression, but we want to maintain their level of physical, emotional, cognitive, and social functioning as much as we can, and influence other health outcomes, not just for them, but for their caregivers. So I know that was a whole lot, but basically maintain where they're at as much as possible. And that being said, sometimes it could be a different person that walks through the door every day. Alzheimer's and most other forms of dementia, they don't have a linear trajectory of behaviors and symptoms. So meeting people where they're at and keeping it there as much as possible.
Okay, I love that. So as a funder, or as somebody that's looking at your organization, I feel like providing the life enriching and stimulating activities is a strategy. So I think that that's how you do what you do, but it's not the end result, right? Like it's not really what you're trying to do, or it's not the impact you're making, right? So the impact you're making, like the maintaining their current level of functioning and fostering a sense of purpose, or maintaining their sense of purpose. Maybe they have had a very full life and had a very, solidified sense of purpose. And it's just like, that's a big issue, right? Like, who am I now? What does this mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had written just kind of on my scribbles when I downloaded a bunch of your podcasts and listened to them on a flight. And so on my scribbles, because I love that, focusing on the mission of our desired result, not necessarily the strategies. So something I had written that's not our official mission, but helping older adults rediscover the value of social interaction on their cognitive and physical health. So kind of guiding it more to what we're trying to do and the intended impact, which is help them realize that it's important to have friendships. It's important to socialize, not just because it's fun, but it actually has proven cognitive and physical health outcomes.
Okay, so say what you scribbled again.
Oh yeah, okay. Helping older adults rediscover the value of social interaction on their cognitive and physical health.
Okay. So I still feel like there's that like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to help them rediscover the value of social interaction. One, we're assuming that they knew the value of social interaction at one point, right? If they're rediscovering.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think a social interaction, or the social piece of your mission, is a strategy. So basically, if you think about it as like, okay, we help them maintain their social, cognitive, and emotional functioning while fostering a sense of purpose. We do that through life enriching, stimulating activities, social interaction, that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And really that social interaction, the life enriching activities, whatever, those could be your vehicles for change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how much do you like or dislike this maintain cognitive, social, and I don't know if there's a way to like, I feel like to just say maintain functioning, like current functioning. One, I know that you may or may not be able to do that.
Yeah.
And two, it doesn't really say, like when you say cognitive, social, and emotional, that says to me more what you're doing than just like maintain functioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you like the maintain.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I do. But I know what you mean when it says maintain, because we can, and that, that's something we'll talk about looking at impact metrics, but it is difficult. There isn't necessarily a scale that exists for measuring the impact in a social model day program. What we are, it's more the clinical scales, but so maintain or even support.
Yeah, or like nurture it.
Foster, nurture. Yes, nurture. That's a great one.
Nurture cognitive, social, and cognitive, social, emotional functioning, and sense of purpose in older and dependent adults. Okay. So nurturing, or to nurture cognitive, social, and emotional functioning I don't want to just say and sense of purpose. Like while providing.
While I'm going to say reestablishing, because that was a good point. Maybe that's something people hadn't felt, in their life. We hoped everyone has felt that in their life, but while providing a sense of purpose. I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right. So are we good with that mission statement?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
and
that's great.
This is just what you take back to your board and then you guys wordsmith further, but
I think that's
we're
great.
getting the desired result, which the desired result is that cognitive, social, emotional functioning and sense of purpose.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna, you have this that you can do so other people can tell, a vision is always like a world where, and what I like to say for vision is if everybody who was eligible for your program took your program, what would the world look like? So, if it was a recovery program, if there was a world where every addict that desired to not be one was able to get to that, or a world where basically everybody's in this area needs were met. What does that look like? And you need to believe in terms of that vision.
Yeah. So we don't have a vision written quite like that yet, but what I had scribbled listening to some of your work was a community where everyone, regardless of age or ability, finds purpose and joy each and every day. So I know that's pretty vague, but something to start working with.
Yeah. And I actually think that that's great. So we won't go through your values, but when we think of your vehicles, and vehicles for change are going to be, we'll do 3 focus areas. It's usually whenever you hear somebody talk about focus areas or pillars, that's what we're talking about. I call them vehicles because I really want to bring home the fact that we're trying to make this desired result. We're trying to make this impact, and this is how we're getting there. So for you guys, I think the life enriching activities. I think social engagement should be a separate one.
Yeah.
And what else?
So for my most recent board meeting, we had come up with our three, but another one, I put impact data collection. That is not something that we've really done looking at our data, and we are a unique model of senior care. We're also unique in our area. There are no other organizations that do the type of work we do. So looking at our impact on the health outcomes of older adults and their care network.
Okay, so this is a really good point. So usually what we do is 3 vehicles for change, and those are your like pillars to get to your desired result. And then we also do a 4th section on operations where you're going to put all of your key activities for marketing, for HR, for data collection, program evaluation, kind of in that bucket, because they're all the things that support your vehicles for change to get you to the impact. Now, impact and data collection could be a vehicle for change if your mission was to bring a replicable model to the United States. If your mission was to expand, you were currently at one location and you're wanted to nurture cognitive, social, emotional functioning while providing a sense of purpose, independent adults throughout the United States, then maybe you would want a pillar where you really do this like data collection. Sometimes people have research if they are like looking for a cure or they have a more academic mission. But for you guys, you're really just collecting data to support your current activities and to demonstrate your impact that you said you would do. Is that right?
Yes, that makes total sense.
Okay. So if you were bringing best practices to the field, if you were a field catalyst, if you were a thought leader, if you were, one of these organizations that really was on the cutting edge and people came to you for like, what is the next best, practices in this area, then that would be part of your mission. And it would certainly be part of one of your programmatic pillars. But I don't think it is for you. I think it belongs under operations.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. And this may be something down the line as we do expand our program, but for right now, that makes a lot of sense. So for a third one, something very important for us to be doing is, I wrote community outreach and education, but the community education, not just on what our program is, but there's a very big accessibility barrier of just the stigma around aging, but dementia. And our program has existed since 1976. A lot of people know about us, but it's kind of like a bit of a secret. A lot of people have had their parents or grandparents or spouses or siblings come here, and we are a beautiful, wonderful site, but there's just that inevitable stigma in our culture. So community outreach, having board members, community members out there. I mean, those would be the activities, right? And just having a presence, and that it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to say, you know what, it's not safe for mom to be home alone anymore. It's not safe, and it's not, purposeful for her. So let's have her spend her day where she's enjoying it and with people. So anyways, so that's what I was thinking for one of the pillars, the community and outreach portion of it.
Yeah. So I like, so there's awareness where you're like, this is how prevalent this is. You're like letting the community know. There's education where you're like, this is what you should do. This is how you, approach this. And then there's also engagement where you're like, no, we're bringing community members in, and they're actually, I've seen some programs like with nursing homes where like the 4th graders come in and like do these like cute things. So with you, do you feel like you fall under awareness, education, engagement?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
All of them?
Yes. That is something that we do on a certain scale at this point, but we have the capacity to do a lot more. We have the board, the volunteers, the staff that can do a lot more in that space. So it's not really a reach, and that's how we can accomplish our goal of having a community where everyone can experience joy and find purpose, is educating people that just because you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or a physical impairment that comes on later in life, you can still find joy and dignified purpose.
And part of that is having a community that's accepting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful to know. So this is a really good, not that we really did this by getting off track at all, but this is a good time to point out. So we could have sat here and gone, it's community awareness, it's education, it's engagement, it's all of those things. And those are all great things. So if we do that, what helps us always center us is we go back and we go, which one of those things moves the needle most on getting these adults their cognitive, social, emotional functioning and giving them a sense of purpose. And if we decide nothing's the right answer, but if we decide that actually it's really community engagement that does that, or we decide we need education because we need an educated community to be with them all the rest of the time. Maybe it's like a situation where the community is just so unaware that awareness is really where you're going to keep, put your efforts. So I think education kind of does a good job at being an umbrella. It doesn't mean you can't do the other things. But it's too easy in a nonprofit situation to go, yeah, all of that would be great. And that's the truth. It would also be great if we served every other population of people. And, it was so Absolutely. Just centering on our mission. So I think that these three are really, really awesome.
Yeah.
So now what you have is a three-legged stool. This is what we do. This is the desired result that we're getting for these dependent adults, and how we get there is through life enriching activities, social engagement, and community education. And it's really easy for a funder or an external person to see how those three things would work together and see what you're focused on. So then we go down and we do a purpose statement, metrics, and key activities for each. So let's go with, is there one you'd like to do first?
Maybe the community education one, because I liked what you were saying, that's the best way of wording it. I'm thinking of that, with talking about vehicles, that's the car make. Other parts of the awareness and other things can be in there, but we're overall focusing on the community education component of what we do.
So I'm totally cool doing this one first with you. I will say though, when you make your impact roadmap, put this one last.
Okay.
Just because I, as a funder, want to hear about the life enriching activities, and I want to hear about this. I want to hear about the experience the people are getting before I hear about the experience the community is getting. This is the direct work you're doing, and the community is kind of secondary.
Oh,
is that
okay.
True?
Yes. So I guess maybe what I was thinking of this being a roadmap that I was coming up with my board of our activities, but that's a really good way of thinking about it. This is something for funders to see what we're doing as an organization, not just task delegation amongst the board and staff. But
yeah, I love it. So this roadmap is so practical because of how much I hate the things that aren't practical and that we don't use. So once you create this puppy, this is your brand. This is who you are. This is how you show up in the world. So saying things like, we do this through life enriching activities, social engagement, and community education should be second nature. But then when you do your social posts on social media, when you do your newsletters out to funders, everything should be in one of these buckets, not in a way that's hard for people to understand, but it should just be like your story you're telling is, this is our desired result and this is how we do it. So it's like, and anytime you take on a new activity, a new proposal, a grant that says, oh, you should do this, it should be like, is it a life enriching activity, social engagement, or community education? If it's not, we either need to go back to the drawing board or we need to say no.
Okay.
Because this is the story you're going to tell over and over again. Because a lot of the times, when people don't get it, even though we think people get it, it's hard for people to get a lot of these things. Like, what exactly do they do? I think that they're a daycare.
It's very difficult. We're not a normal model, and even some of the vernacular around it really confuses people. So we have added challenges and added stigma that we got to jump around. So no, that's great. I really appreciate that. So how about for that first one, we do start with life enriching activities. Okay. Let's get into the meat of that.
Because it's almost like give them what they want to hear. And this is the truth of what you do, is these activities and the social engagement, but then also be bold in saying, but hey guys, we're not, this isn't something like we do. Like, this is something we need to do as a community. You know what I mean?
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
But I feel like it's easier to sell them on that after they go, oh, this is cool, you do this. Oh, this is also cool, you do this. Oh, by the way, you're expected to show up too.
Yes.
Okay, so for life enriching activities, we literally do like a mini mission statement for each of these. So what is this is the purpose, or this is just the deeper goal that we have for life enriching activities. So this would be like where you brought in like the unique needs, the unique programs that you addressing unique needs, So what do you think?
Yes. Okay, I'm just honoring the life stories or life experiences of older adults, while also acknowledging what makes them happy in the moment. We have people that are neurosurgeons, retired neurosurgeons, and now they're very interested in doing coloring books, and that's okay. And that brings them so much joy, but that can be hard to marry the two. And but that's a very, very special part of what an adult day program is. So yeah, honoring life experiences. I mean, maybe that's just it. This is a purpose.
What about like exploring individual strengths or more just interests?
Yeah, and that's something that pops up all throughout life. Other interests we find, and we just had someone the other day tell us he's a mechanic. He was not a mechanic in his career, but he's telling us that, and that's one. He was a school teacher, but maybe he wanted to be a mechanic. So we all know him as the mechanic now, and we're always talking about cars and giving him stuff to work on.
So what about developing purpose and joy through individual exploration?
Interesting.
So while you're going through something like this, even if you go, yeah, that sounds good, and then you think about what you actually do and you're like, well, honestly, it's bingo on Tuesdays. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Then you need to go back and go, okay, well then what does bingo do if it's not this super individualized thing? So what are we missing here?
Okay, so adding to the purpose statement there.
Like, is it just your life enriching activities? Is it one-on-one? Is it
It's in a group setting, but we have different groups because there are a lot of shared interests. We're starting a French club right now. There are some native French speakers, and then there are some people who like French food or took French class in high school in the 1950s. So it's mostly in the group setting. The one-on-one, that's more when there is, a situation of distress and we need to calm someone down. But the whole thing is you're with friends, you're with people.
So do you think we could take out purpose and joy and just say fulfillment?
Absolutely. I think that's a great word.
Because I feel like purpose is almost like,
It sounds like an individual
and it's
calling that
too much, right? It's like, I'm not
I
gonna
like
like do a hobby and be like, now I have my purpose, but I can be certainly fulfilled
yeah. And
through that. Yeah.
something that we talk with families about is sometimes, the transition of starting to come here, particularly if, I'm sorry about the sound, particularly if they're very used to the routine of staying home, watching TV, and they're okay with that, quote unquote, they are okay, they seem all right, but physically that's not great for them. Social functioning declines. So when they start coming here, it sometimes can be difficult for the families. They say, oh, I don't want to, but you can't deny the fulfillment that happens with, even having regular meals, having, regular socialization, go home tired because you've had a full day. So yeah, I like the word fulfillment.
So now I'm feeling like it's not just an exploration of personal interest. It's like developing fulfillment through active engagement in.
In connections, connecting with a community of peers, because that's also a really important part. People in the older age group, they do kind of isolate themselves and just by the structure of our society are marginalized and might not spend a lot of time with their contemporaries, people the same age. And that's always really, really beautiful to see that they remember how nice it is to spend time with people your own age, have the same memories, same interests.
Yeah, well, and I think that we'll probably expand a lot on that in the social.
Right. Oh, right, of course.
So developing fulfillment through it's like active engagement in. I want to bring in like the activities are personal interest, because here what I'm going to say is like this is also help set you apart. I'm going to assume like we all just make judgments and assumptions. So as soon as you tell me what you do, I'm just going to assume that you have a list of activities you do, and if I want to sign my dad up, he's going to have bingo and yoga and walking and whatever. But the fact, and you can tell me whether you do this or not, but if you were like, actually, we figure out like what your dad likes and we have different groups and we put him in his different thing, that to me, I've made an assumption that you wouldn't work that hard. But if you do really work that hard to kind of curate this experience, that's bold to lead with. Like that's helpful. And I've already assumed you don't do that.
That is exactly what we do. That's our model. It's called person-centered care, where of course we want to hear, we ask the family in intake to give us the picture of their loved one, their background life story, which is really important, especially in those difficult moments where someone's, really struggling, or if we're trying to provide assistance in personal care and they're uncomfortable, and we can bring up the name of a childhood dog and say, tell me about, Barney, what was he like? That connection. But that being said, we prioritize what that person needs, and that takes time for our staff to get to know them. But that person-centered care, where and maybe the activity list that their family provided us was, super physical, and they want to go on excursions, walks, they want to do, all of the fitness classes, but they come here and they really like kind of the more quiet poetry sessions, or want to help with cooking activities. So yes, that is something that we absolutely do. That is
yeah,
really,
that's really special, that like
yeah.
personalized model. So do you think developing fulfillment through active engagement and activities curated by personal interests?
Yeah. Wish there was a way to say like personal interests that we kind of discover with them. I don't know how we'd be able to say that. And if you think that is clear enough, but it is a process, particularly working with adults with different forms of dementia. The verbal communication is something that can be lost, damaged even in very early stages of cognitive impairment. So
I mean, shoot, if you ask me, like, so what do you do? What do you like
yeah,
doing? Like, I'm like, I'm a mom.
I was
I'm
recently
brain
asked
dead.
my hobbies, and I said napping with my dog.
Exactly. It's
I
like,
wish, I mean, it sounded silly, but that is probably my favorite hobby. But if someone were to spend time with me and see what I like to do, and
or gave you opportunities to explore it, right?
absolutely, if they put, so what we do when someone comes, we'll put things in front of them, you know, different types of books, different art activities, different music, and go over and say, do you like this music? We had a gentleman here who wasn't able to verbally communicate with us his music preference type, but we ended up finding out he was a Metallica guy. The general population that we have here, that's not the type of music we'd be playing, but just based on his reaction when we would put on different types of music, and we finally put on, you know, more rock, and he would get all excited. And so it's the discovery, but that's what our team does. And not just the program team working with the members, admin team, everyone. We are constantly trying to find what people like. And like I said before, that can change day to day.
Okay, so I think that active engagement is redundant. So developing fulfillment through activities,
curated through
exploration of personal interests, developing fulfillment through activities.
Is there a way we could say something like their personal interests, you know, in the moment, in that day? We say a lot of helping people find joy in the moment or joy in the now, because it could be something they didn't like before, or, you know, never really showed interest. But
yeah,
I don't know, that actually does sound really nice, the exploration of personal interests. And, you know, part of the activities with that, when we get to that part, is looking at their life story, but also really close observation and mindful.
If I was going to include what you just said, I would say developing fulfillment and a sense of presence through activities curated through exploration of personal interests. Developing fulfillment and a sense of presence. I don't like saying through twice here. Developing fulfillment through activities curated through. I don't like that. Developing fulfillment.
How about just developing fulfillment through exploration
of personal interests.
Yeah.
So would you like in a sense of presence?
Yeah, I like that.
I have no clue if that's yeah, I guess that is. Developing fulfillment and a sense of presence through exploration of personal interests. I love this.
Yay.
So like that's the process, and you might come back to it. So this is what's super annoying is like come back to it as many times as you need to with your board to be like, is that what we really do? Fine. But once you have agreed on it, agree on it for at least a year. Because what I see happens is we've got our KPIs, we've got our key activities, we've got our purpose, and we come back to report on our KPIs and we go,
that's not what we did.
Maybe we should write that we discover, you know, and we start changing the purpose, which changes everything and gets people just like we're spinning our wheels. So once you agree and it's done, yes, maybe next year during your strategic planning, you can move to change a word or decide this is what we do instead. But changing it throughout the year leads to more confusion. If every time you sit down to talk about your key activities or KPIs, you're redoing your purpose.
Right.
I only say that because I've been there.
No, I really appreciate that. And this is the first time we're adapting the impact roadmap model. So let's not, if you have trial and error things to share, I love it. Please.
Well, and the thing is you likely, if you're an executive director, are going to be the ones kind of like holding, your board should hold you accountable to this, but you probably will be holding your board accountable to this. So what happens is like, you go to KPIs and you go like, oh, well, we could whatever, count this metric. And you're always going like, is that a key indicator of fulfillment or a sense of presence?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if a KPI comes up so often that isn't in your purpose and people are arguing that we should be tracking that, then maybe it's time to go back to our purpose and change what we really do.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But the KPIs are, how do we know, how can we measure whether or not we're developing fulfillment and creating a sense of presence?
Right. And so, for example, from your one pager, having those impact metrics that we would report to funders, how often are those the same metrics in the KPIs for the vehicles of change?
What do you mean, how often are they the same?
So for example, I made one of the one-page funder sheets that's for a scholarship to attend our program. And I put impact metrics for the funders of, if they invest in the opportunity to support members to come here through a scholarship, we're going to collect certain data points to show how meaningful this has been. So if the funder then wants to look at our impact roadmap, our plan, will they see those same metrics attached to a vehicle of change?
They should, because there's no reason to ever do more work than you need to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I mean, people should hear the same story over and over and over and over and over again. The only time you would collect or do different metrics is you start getting granular in just one of your activities. So let's say you have a program where you do a field trip and you guys go to, I don't know, you guys go somewhere in the community and you do that field trip once a week and it's this big thing. You could have very specific metrics on that field trip, and so you have somebody fund the field trip and you say specifically, like, does the field trip help them feel like they're getting out or make new connections? And they're not your particular KPIs, but you just chose to add some more ones. This will come up when somebody wants to fund a new project or you have a new program or something like that. But what you should do is, and we're about to come up with KPIs right now, each focus area will have several KPIs: how much, how well, and is anybody better off, and however many you need to collect enough data to prove this thing. And of those, whichever is like the biggest hitting KPI, which is usually is anybody better off, those we move up to headline KPIs. So ideally you would have up under your mission and your vision and your values, you'd have your vehicles for change, and you might have your headline measures. And these are like the 3 measures you have on your website. So like 98% of participants said that they found a sense of fulfillment. 75% said they made new connections with a peer. 75% said that 75% of community members or family members said that they increased their education on, or they know what to do now when. So you would have like one big metric from each of those focus areas that you would report on. It would be on your site. It would be like, if I want to really know what impact are you making, these are the 3 headline measures that you would show. But you'll have more measures if people want to drill down.
Okay.
So let's do, so for KPIs, we do how much, how well, and is anybody better off? That's how we start. So how much is always going to be like attendance of your life enriching activities.
Right. Or census, right.
I am going to want to know like number of participants enrolled. Now, if you have like enrolled overall, or you might have this
daily average is what we look at a lot. So we have a number of people enrolled and people choose which days they come. But what I really want as our metric to change right now is our daily average.
Okay. So daily average. Now, when you do these, you will put a KPI of the actual number. So what do you want your daily average to be?
Minimum of 30.
So 30 daily average, your participants enroll would be whatever it would be, 150, whatever your target is. Now, when you're doing KPIs, you want to not do your like ideal, but at the end, this is how I put it. At the end of the year, if you hit this, would you say you're successful? Or if you don't hit this, are you okay with saying we missed the mark? You know what I mean? So let's say you got 29. This is where you draw the line in the sand. So if you had 29 daily average, are you willing to say we missed the mark?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the decider.
Yes.
Because a lot of people say, oh, we want 80% attendance. And I'm like, is 75 a miss the mark? And they're like, no, 75 is still great. So it's like, okay, well then let's put our KPI at 75.
No, we can and should do 30. That is okay. Have 30 people on a daily basis.
So another thing you could do, like for a how well, is like how well you're really, that's how well you're delivering the service. So you might have like everybody that joins your program go through this exploration process, this development of need, like some type of intake assessment where you're doing these things and you really get to know Bob and he has a profile. So that would be like 90% of participants have a like in-depth whatever profile developed on there, or individualized plan of care, like whatever you guys call it. Do you have any type of like?
Yes, we have a care plan that we come up with for every single member that comes in. And we recently, it was during the pandemic, so things were all over the place, but we have a software that's actually been developed just for adult day programs, a very niche type of software. And we certainly can take better advantage of all the tools it has for building the care plan. So maybe that can be a goal, is to adopt all of our existing care plans, which do talk about the level of functioning the member has, and then we update it at 6 months in a year, but to maybe expand on the metrics or the kind of focus areas with them.
Yeah, if you're saying that you guys care a lot about life enriching and that it's like specific to that person, I think that adding something to this client manager specifically about their interests. So I don't know, like you could say 90% of interest profiles are developed.
Yes.
You have to think about that, but you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And my wheels are kind of turning on, I'll dig more into this, but 90% of our members are connected to a specific program on their interests. So we can look, based on their background, based on their interest, that we've developed a program around that.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about this, like just going through this, is so I could say to you, okay, 90% of participants have had, their interests developed and added to the CRM. So what do nonprofits do? They go out and they go, okay, cool. We're going to write Bob is interested in cycling and whatever. And then they get to report that 90% of, because they did it for everybody. But what percentage of those actually get engaged in cycling? Or, so just being able to write down that Bob likes something doesn't help Bob very much.
Right. So connecting them to the actual program that they were engaged with and involved.
Yeah. So the best would be like 70% of participants engaged in activities directly related to their interests.
I love that. And that is something that we can measure. We have a very great ratio of team members. We can see and go through who's been engaged with activities and who's not. So I love that. That's really
so that is definitely that's a how well, because that's how well is your staff engaging them in something that they'd actually be interested in. This also trumps the other metric of that we're collecting interests on people, or we're figuring out because it doesn't really, you've obviously figured it out if you're collecting whether or not they're doing it. You know what I mean? So this one takes care of other data points because it's already obvious that you're collecting that. And now we're getting much more impactful than, oh, you had the poor person fill out a questionnaire that you're never going to use, which is often what happens.
Yes.
Okay, so then now we've got how much. Those are the two numbers of rolled, your daily average, love it. 70% are actually engaged in activity directly related to their interest. That is how well are you actually delivering the service. And now we get the, is anybody better off? So for these, we're going to need two metrics on fulfillment and sense of purpose. And you will just be able to do like, so 70%, you can change these, of participants report a sense of fulfillment during activities.
And we do also submit or survey our caregivers. So those are the family members that bring their loved ones here. So I don't know if, you know, that would be included as something to look at, that the family members have noticed, you know, a change in the overall morale of their loved one since attending. I don't.
Yeah, I think that 70% of family members report an improvement in overall morale of their loved one.
Yeah.
Okay, I also want to go back to, so 70% of participants report a sense of fulfillment during activities. So this can be weird to me. This, I mean, most people are not going to be skeptical of these things, but I would be. So I'd go like, how are you collecting that? Because it can be weird, right? What if somebody walks up to you during an activity and is like, are you fulfilled? You're like, yeah, this is great. You know what I mean? So the data collection matters. The duration of time matters. So let's say you're in a situation where like people aren't coming daily, it's random people, then you do kind of need to ask them in the moment. Ideally, you would say, you know, if you had somebody enroll and they had actually come every Monday for a month, or they had come every day for 2 weeks, you would ask them at the end of the 2 weeks or at the end of the month, or maybe monthly, you ask them about their sense of fulfillment.
Yes, and something else that happens when someone is, you know, having that sense of fulfillment and their caregiver can tell is they'll add days. So sometimes days of attendance. So sometimes someone only signs up for 3 days a week, and it's really, and this is more often than not, but it's really working out for them, and they really enjoy being here. And the caregiver can see a marked difference, and so they say, oh, let's do 4 days, 5 days. And that's also why that relates into the number of, or the daily average, because we want everyone to feel connected. And that's also why we would need more funding, so we can provide that scholarship so people can attend more days.
Yeah, so you can either do like retention rate, but you know, you could also just do percent of participants who come back after their first visit.
Yeah, yes, that conversion rate is very important. That's a really good one to have.
And then I would even add like percent of participants who like become regularly involved, and you define regularly involved however you want to.
Yeah.
What's great is you collect this data for the first year. Maybe you find out that, you know, 42% or 25% become regularly involved. And that's where you hone in the next year. You don't feel badly about your numbers. You go, what are we doing to really outreach the people we already know that have already been here? Are we surveying them? Are we asking them that maybe if there were other activities available, they would have come back? What was it that made them not come back? So there's a lot of opportunities for learning in these numbers, especially when they're not great numbers, that we should see as opportunities and not as like, let's fudge the numbers just so they're good or something.
Of course.
Okay, so then percent of participants that report a sense of fulfillment. So when do you think that you would survey or ask about somebody's sense of fulfillment?
Well, when we do an update to their care plan, so we come up with a care plan when someone enrolls, or within the first 30 days of them enrolling. And then we look at it again, I believe at the 90-day mark to make any adjustments as needed. And then it will, after their first year, we'll adjust it again, but maybe at that 90-day mark to see if this program is fulfilling their needs, or their interests. And because we have a one-on-one discussion with them to understand, if they're connecting with it. But I do also want to say the discussion is not always a verbal discussion. As I was saying, the communication, we can tell if someone's connecting or happy or not.
So yeah, I mean, how you collect this could either be that check-in, it could be a interview, like a structured interview, which is what I think it should be. Just it's a conversation, but you have an interview protocol where you hit a couple questions and you record their answers. And you ask these questions to get at the sense of fulfillment. If you can ask directly about, do you feel fulfilled when you're here? Or do you think that this has added fulfillment to your life since you've been here? When you're engaged in our activities, does that add to your sense of fulfillment? However you want to ask that question, so that you're eliciting the right information. I like because you have your hands on these people, and direct conversations are always best for like building rapport and, all of that. I like the idea of a structured interview, but at least you're hitting some of the questions, without saying like, we sent you a survey to your email.
Yeah, no, we need to have that direct conversation. Would you ever include the questions that are being asked in this impact report, impact roadmap to show? Okay, so that doesn't need to be shared.
It's way too tactical. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody asks for it, but I don't think they will.
Okay.
So sense of fulfillment, and then it's going to be the same thing. So 70% of participants report a sense of improved presence. And I would structure this question. So this is how you're going to report it. But as I would ask it, is I would say like, do you feel yourself like being in the moment here?
Connected to what we're doing. Yeah.
So I think it's okay to ask the question that way and report it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. For everyone, we'll kind of have different ways of wording around it. For a lot of our members, there's that sense of discomfort or not feeling safe. So not being here, but just being out in the world because they can perceive that there has been some physical or cognitive changes. So asking about, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel safe? Do you feel respected? That will help get to the, feeling of improved presence.
Yeah. So you just brought something up. And I'm wondering if it's like a fourth pillar or something. Maybe it's the social piece. But like so ideally we would show, like, I like that this is just the life enriching activities, but ideally we would have some, like, we developed like more of their skills for when they're not with us, their sense of safety, their sense of ability. And that really goes back to your overarching this,
because it's not just while they're on site. We want to support the, health outcomes for them and their family. So if they're feeling safe and comfortable, and that's something that translates outside of our program, they might be wandering less, from out of the house. If they're trying to find where to go, maybe have more restful nights, which then really supports the well-being of the caregiver.
Yeah. So we're not going to go through this one today, but when you are thinking about your social engagement, it's not just creating peer. It's literally like how they engage and see themselves in society.
Yes.
So the social engagement piece is part of it, like that peer support that they have, but also make sure that you have those metrics. I think that social engagement pillar will be able to
Incorporate that as well.
Okay, so if these are your KPIs, what we do is we say, what activities must we do to hit these KPIs? So we may, like, do you have specific activities you're thinking that you could do to get to this 30 daily average, like to increase that?
Well, we do need to have more outreach efforts. So attending expos, fairs, community, and networking events. So really just getting out there. We have been around for a long time, but like I said, because of stigma, the word of mouth is not as strong as it could be. So we need to put ourselves in front of people.
So I always like develop and execute, because if you just say do outreach activities, everybody goes, so why didn't we do those? And we didn't leave time for, like, guys, we need a whole plan on how we're marketing this, how we're developing that. It takes a while to figure out how are we doing that.
Right.
And I think that people don't do because there was never any time given to the strategy. So each one of these little things, developing this, like going out and doing outreach, like what's our goal? Okay, what's our highest yield? So I wouldn't want you spending a bunch of time at the fire department's, like, event if it's mostly for kids. Like, yeah, you might have a volunteer that's willing to do it, but could you put them in another place? Could they man a booth at like something that makes more sense? And this happens in nonprofits because they just go, we'll just do everything and we'll be everywhere. But you really need to, stay with high yield events.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so develop and execute outreach activities to promote the program in the community. What could we do? And that helps get more participants enrolled. That helps get the daily average up. What could we do to ensure or help people come back after their first visit?
Let's say create a very structured follow-up plan. I can better word that, but we do have our basic strategy, but having a very clear follow-up plan. Yeah, and incentive program.
For first-time attendees.
Yes, making it as attractive as possible.
And then maybe there's like create a like a participant engagement engagement plan. It's like what's the life cycle and how do we nurture them through? So the people that, like, we don't just incentivize that second time, but then how do we talk to them? Do we give them, this can even be like, we remember birthdays and stuff like that, but just like, how do we make them feel belonging?
Yes.
So create a participant engagement plan for basically, for lifetime, for continued membership.
Yes. I really like that.
Okay, 70% of participants engage in activities directly related to their interests. Like, right now, do you feel like you need to come up with like a workflow of ensuring that, or no?
Well, not necessarily workflow. We have someone whose role is to come up with the activities, something that we need to do to respond to these new interests that are coming in. More people means more backgrounds, having more collaborative community partnerships. We have different businesses and different organizations that come out and lead activities or, do speaking engagements, and that will be able to add diversity. Our team can do so much, but there's so much out in the community. I'm using cars again as an example, but there's like an antique car club in town. We can talk about cars, do all of that here, but they can bring the cars over and have a car demonstration day. So something like that.
Okay, so again, this is where typically somebody would write develop community partnerships. And I am writing develop a community partnership plan to nurture specific interests and develop innovative activities, because what partnerships, who, what are the ones that make sense? If just one person likes birds, maybe you're not going to, you know what I mean? You
Yeah,
figure
yes,
out
of course.
a low barrier to entry to bringing birds in. But if a lot of people like cars, then it's like, we're going to create a whole program around it. And
And
you
then
know,
something.
go ahead.
Oh no, this is a very big goal of ours to expand our programs geographically. We have a great location, but it can be kind of difficult for people in other areas of Santa Barbara. So, one of the activities that my board and I have discussed is just offering our program, at least offshoots of it, at different locations. So, yeah, presence throughout the greater community.
Okay.
We're having a lot wider geographical presence. I know that sounds pretty vague, but that is one of our goals, and how we can word that.
Well,
We'll
let's
figure it
just
out.
say develop community partnership plan to nurture specific interests, develop innovative activities, and expand.
Yeah. Locations of services, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, as a board, I would also get like, what would that take, and getting all these methods down and making sure you're hitting all your KPIs before you're expanding. So like, are you solid? You're at a 30 daily average. You're busting at the seams, and now we're gonna offer it somewhere else.
That it has been one of our barriers. It seems small, but there's a bunch of construction around our area on the freeways, and so we have two cities on the other sides of us that our membership has really gone down from those areas because the traffic is horrific. A 10-minute drive is now, 30. So
Yeah, I mean, if you could be in a different location or pilot another location.
and we have developed the plan for that. It's just executing it. So I think, yeah, the partnerships, the community partnerships, and really
So
tracking.
actually what I would say is this is not under this. So let's just say and develop innovative activities. I think that's more of an operational. The expanding the program to expanding locations, that's like an operations thing. That's realizing, you know what, this isn't working. We're going to switch it up. That might be launching a survey to see where would a good location be, or whatever. Developing that plan. So do you see now like how key activities, typically people do key activities and they write like, I don't know, like very tactical things to actually execute the activities?
I really like that. Very, very actionable. I thought when I was working on this that I was making mine actionable, but now even seeing that, I was staying more on the philosophical side. I love this, and we need.
So when the board is holding you accountable, or when you're holding you accountable to yourself, you go like, what I would do and what I show people how to do is like, literally, I drop this in a Google sheet and I do like, okay, follow up an incentive program, like Google Sheet, who's responsible for it, when, here's the link to the Google Doc of our planning doc. And I start like assigning people either on the board or staff members to like, this is the one that you're going to start drafting. And we're going to meet on it once a month, or every time we have a board meeting, we're going to report on like a status of where this incentive program is. Because the problem is this gets all dreamy. People don't do it, but you can literally put it in a Google Sheet and start assigning people, dates, when are we checking in again, make the calendar invite about we've got to check in on this. And so that you're holding yourself accountable and you're making progress.
That's great. What have you seen as the best way for tracking progress between executive director and a board? Is that right now we meet every other month, but I can send updates at any point.
So it depends on how involved they're going to be. So if they say like, yeah, we agree with all of this in the impact roadmap, and then we say like, okay, Well, these are large things. These are like infrastructural things. We're developing like our community partnership plan. We're developing our outreach activities, like promoting plan. So what I would do, just like to curate some like ownership of this, is which board member wants to like either do committees, or just like which board member am I going to work with on this one? Which board member am I going to work with on this one? Then like I would in the meeting create the sheet and like, okay, Bob, you're assigned to this. When are we meeting about that? Okay, here's the calendar invite. And honestly, every board meeting, besides going over some financials and stuff, I don't see why we can't just report on the things we said we were doing. Now, if you don't have a working board and they're completely governing and they're not going to do any of this stuff, then you work on this with staff. And this is stuff that you would report on. And you'd say, this is where we're at. So you would assign it to different staff members. I want you to start a draft of this. I want you to think about how we would work through a workflow on this. And then you're just reporting it back to the board and they're saying yay or nay.
Okay.
So, but I like, you know, you can't expect anybody to do anything unless you gave them a due date and what was expected of them and, you know, all those things.
Right.
So that hopefully even like, hopefully I've helped with just key activities need to be like, usually develop the plan to do that. Now, next year, hopefully it isn't that, you know, the first year it's usually developing all these plans and figuring out a lot of strategy. And then it gets to be, you know, hopefully growth or tracking, expansion, or things that are more fun than creating plans.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you feel like that was helpful and you'll be able to kind of go through? Okay.
Yeah. So helpful.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, this is like, I'm just one of those people that can't, the strategic planning, it's like hard enough to not do what we said we were going to do, or like just have a huge drawn out process where I go, yes, that would be awesome. We should do that. You know, you get so excited for it, but then we all leave the meeting and nobody talks about it again. Yeah. So I'm like, let's make it actionable. And at the end of the year, what you should be able to do, one thing I do want to say is you want to like pretty much right away figure out how are you tracking that data, because you might be like, okay, we're going to create this plan. We have a whole year to create this plan. So you start, you know, putting out your meetings and your 3 months out, whatever. You do want to look at your KPIs and go, if we're collecting, if we're going to say 70% did this, we need to make sure we're collecting that data. Yeah. So getting on your data collection methods, whether that's the survey we talked about or counting participation or like whatever your things are, just making sure that you don't get halfway through the year and go, well, we hadn't tracked it yet. We didn't figure out how to track it. So I would think about those surveys, and I put one of the key activities as developing program evaluation methods. So basically like look at all your KPIs and are we collecting that data? If not, how are we going to? And let's implement that as soon as possible. And you can go through your key activities and I would just write like 1, 2, 3, like as far as priority, because you're going to want to prioritize some of the, like the first time attendees follow-up thing. I'd want to like work on that
right away,
tomorrow. Yeah. Because it sounds exciting and you want to engage your members, you know? And
it's constantly happening. New people every day. So
absolutely. Well, it was so nice to have you. You guys, if you're interested in the Impact Roadmap, you can go to forpurposelive.com/impact. And I love doing this stuff. I hope that, you know, you feel a little clearer. And I hope that you're able to give it back to your board in a way that makes sense, but they can always come and watch this recording.
Yes, I'm going to send this out to them today with the notes and everything. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I love this. I love your work. I was thinking, I actually first saw a video of you on TikTok.
Oh, and yeah. Well, good.
I'm late at night scrolling, and it's normally, you know, not something I want to remember. And I was like fumbling to try and find notes to write it down. So that's why I said it's on scribbles and napkins, but it's wonderful. And I really appreciate this new way of looking at strategizing for nonprofits. We want to serve as many people as possible, do great work, but we need to be really structured like any other business would be. So I really appreciate that, and so appreciate all of your help today.
Thank you so much. Well, it was nice chatting with you. Go out there and keep doing your good work.
All right.
All right.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
Bye.